getting whitelisted? How do you get whitelisted? Or what are the best practices for getting whitelisted, and what is the things that you definitely should not do?
There we go. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome to episode 3 of NFT Party. And we are here with the first guest that we have ever had on the podcast. This is Nick Corey. Say hi, mate. Coming remote here. Coming remote from America. You know, it's always weird. Well, funny when we work with so many American people. And I think really as two Brits like running a podcast, we're probably the odd ones out really. But it always is weird. We've got like Americans, Aussies. It's all good. So we've had to jump up here. We're crammed back onto Jack's couch again for this one because obviously we've got the new space, but we've not got any internet in there yet. So we want to make sure we deliver the value first and foremost.
That's the one.
It doesn't matter where it's coming from. So back on Jack's couch. Where are you, Nick? Where are you, mate?
So I'm actually in my apartment right now, but I am in Los Angeles, California.
Ooh. Probably better than Bromsgrove, United Kingdom. That amazing.
It's so overrated. Please, I'm telling you, it's so overrated.
I'm telling you, Nick, we're getting there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's not coming. From a Brit's point of view. It's not guaranteed.
George, you coming out here too, man?
Yeah, trust me, you're gonna get us out there very soon, I'm sure. Cool. So before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us on what is episode 3, and as I've said, our first ever interview. So Nick is a moderator, and we were really keen to get moderator on the podcast first and foremost, as there are so many questions around Discord, around general questions about navigating Discord, about what moderators do. There's people watching this that are going to want to become or want to get into being a mod for projects. So we thought we'd start with Nick. And so Nick, tell us about what projects you are a moderator for and on currently.
Yeah, of course. So one of the first projects I ever moderated, and I'm still currently moderating, is called the Like Islands. So just a little bit about Like Islands. We're currently on our 2nd generation. Gen 1, I know you guys talked about it briefly, but it was a very small allocation of 120 plots. And kind of what you'll notice with those animated plots is not only are there Easter eggs, but really there's hints that there was life there. And really what leads into Gen 2 is we're exploring what happened to the inhabitants of Like Islands. Specifically after the event, which is what we're still unfolding lore-wise. So Gen 2, again, it's going to be focusing on the inhabitants, where they went, what exactly that event was. So it's definitely going to be different than what Gen 1 was, and I'm excited as well, just with the game theory we're trying to incorporate into it. I think it'll make for a very interesting secondary market.
Is there a date?
And then the second
is there a date for your release?
We don't have a definitive date, but we are aiming for end of June. So this month, in a few weeks, really. So it's coming up soon.
And is the Discord still closed?
No. The Discord was only closed for a couple of weeks. It's been open. So please, if you guys are, if you're looking for a new home, come enjoy our Discord. It is completely open.
This Like Island actually was one of the first projects that Jack actually ever got me into. When I was a new baby to this space, he was like, "Oh, I've got this one. What do you think of the artwork for this?" And I was like, "Oh, that's fire." And so it's got a little.
No, Like Island's so fire, I think, and it's run by 2 British guys, isn't it?
Yeah. So you have Mike Cannings, which is the artist himself, and then you have Ashley Best, who is the animator. So sick. I believe they're both up in Bristol.
Nice.
Bristol's a place where,
yeah, super edgy.
So yeah, they've been working together for years, and they actually have their own company that they operate out of. So just 2 incredibly genuine people. You guys definitely have to meet them at some point and go have a pint.
Is that what British people do? Is it? We go have pints.
I mean, I don't know. You tell me, man.
Yeah, it is. I'm just teasing. Right.
I'm
so
curious what you think
we've-
Americans do.
You go to the bar, bro. It's different, isn't it?
You have your seltzers, mate. Don't even lie. You just have seltzers these days. That's what I've heard. Anyway.
Yeah, seltzers are so big now in America, aren't they?
Yeah, no, they are like White Claw and all that.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why. I don't know, but
It's so weird.
for some reason it's big.
Actually, I mean,
Like
we're
a
going to
house
get
of
onto
juice,
these
bro.
questions because we've pulled a load of questions off Discord and that people have asked. But Loco, right? Energy drink from the States.
Four Loco?
Okay, sorry,
Are
yeah,
you
Four
talking about Four
Loco,
Loko?
yeah. I had one of them the other day. They're banned in this country. Did you know that?
Yeah, dude, they're bad for you. So, little background story with that. I know, I'll be quick with this. I'm sorry. But yeah, so Four Locos used to have a different recipe. It used to be stronger back in the
Jesus.
day. And now they've actually they've weakened it a bit. But dude, don't mess with Four Locos.
It's banned over here. We had one the other day.
You're
me and
talking
my
about
mates,
your
we-
little shop.
Yeah, we picked it up. There's this really dodgy shop. Few like 200 meters away from where I live. It's like a hole in the wall. Sounds like I live in a really shit place, but it's not. It's like round the corner.
Hole in the wall where
It is, honestly, it's literally a
Sounds like a
hatch.
bodega.
It's a hatch in the wall, all dark inside. This hand comes out. I shit you not, and it gives you whatever you're asking for. Well, you're asking for these Four Loco drinks, banned energy drinks in the country. Anyway, digressing here a little bit. We want to get into some general questions with you because I think that's how we're going to bring the most value to people listening on the podcast.
So
That might want to get into being a moderator. So
the starting
Kick it off,
question,
bro.
yeah, was like, how did you get into the Web3 space initially, and what do you do full time at the moment?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So I probably started like a lot of other people when first NFTs really started having their traction with Bored Ape Yacht Club. Hearing that a JPEG went for $8,000 was just like, it was unheard of because again, at the time, I know we talked about this offline, but near the end of the bull run that we just had, you had meme coins that were just going parabolic with everything. So it just kind of felt like another version of that. So it's just like, okay, this is interesting. I don't think I'll get into.
Did you go
ahead.
actively looking, like, were you actively seeking out like knowledge about NFTs, or like did it like come across your radar like through like social media, or were you like just looking for it?
Yeah, so I would say it was a little bit of both. You had the algorithm coming into play for sure, which I think definitely helps. And then I have a buddy that I actually go to school with. He's really big into crypto, and he just bought like a basic Spider-Man NFT, his very first one, just kind of get his toes wet. So that kind of got me into it. But really what got me into getting into NFTs is there was two projects. So one is called Marines. So I'm a vet, prior active duty, and the artist is very well known for his comic strips. So made a project. I saw that it was a cheap entry price, so I just decided to kind of go into it. And the moment I went through that process of minting and waiting for reveal, and then seeing what reveal is like, and just looking at the rarity, dude, I was just sold. I was
the
just
waiting
a
for
kid
the
in a
reveal that
candy
gets
store.
you. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
man.
all about
And it
that,
was
isn't it?
like, that's basically all she wrote from there. And then shortly after, I saw the very first Invisible Friend. I don't know if you remember it, but the detective
Yeah.
that DK has. Yeah, that's the first Invisible Friend I saw, man. So
Don't even remind me
when
about
I saw
Invisible
that-
Friends.
I'm sorry, man. But I mean, that's where we met too. So it's
very
good
true.
times.
It's very true. Did I tell you about meeting Nick in Invisible Friends?
No, you didn't.
You got whitelisted through your vlogs, right? At the time. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. I mean, that's what I'm assuming. I'm 99% sure that's basically what caused it.
And that was such a sick idea. So explain to people who are listening what you actually did, for those who don't know.
For those of you who don't know what Invisible Friends is, it was a project that minted back in February, and it's part of RCC, so Random Character Collective. it was a grind. That was a very, very, very hype project. So really, I didn't get into that project until January, early January. And you know, there's already over 100,000 people in the Discord, and I was just like, man, I didn't even understand what it meant for a community behind an NFT. I always just kind of thought that was BS, to be frank. So that was actually like the first server I got involved in. So I got to see like, hey, this is what it's about. But anyways,
You gotta do something to stand out, right? When there's a Discord that heavy, that full.
Yeah, exactly. So really, to be honest, it was a little bit of trying to stand out, but I kind of figured that I joined extremely late. So the best thing that I could do is at least find people who had been there for a while and then highlight what they've done, so at least they don't leave empty-handed.
So smart and so nice as well.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out. It was a lot of fun, to be honest, because there was some people doing insane things just for invisible friends. And I mean, like, aside from art or like making their own personal songs related to it, there was a lot of great people that were just unfortunately getting buried in by grinders or bots. So yeah,
Like me.
it was. How's your mood, bro?
Oh mate, I'm telling you, I still think about that, and I actually can't believe the amount of messages that we managed to pull off between the two of us. But yeah, it was crazy. Like you said though, like it was so good for that was basically the place where I met, like, I guess all the people I know right now in Discord and Twitter. It's mad. Was it Invisible Friends that sparked the interest in being a mod and actually that stepping stone towards becoming one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't say that RCC specifically sparked that. I think it was more so I was curious, just because, you know, I had seen amazing mods like Mendez or Lost Slim, Flex, you name it. They really, since they're just really on par with everything, I was just like, you know what, I kind of want to see what modding is about. What do they do? Like, what are the perks of it? Like, really, just overall, what does a mod do? So really, it just came down to me asking Ash, the animator of Like Islands, like, hey, what do mods do? What are your expectations of mods? And he just was willing to have me on as part of the team. So that kind of is what led me into becoming a mod, is simply just asking and being curious.
So I feel like that's a perfect time for you to literally run down to someone that wants the answers to those questions. What does that involve, man? What do they tell you? And then what's your interpretation of what a mod does? What does being a mod involve?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a little nuanced and situational, because every team's going to be different and every project's going to be different. So I'll talk about Like Islands. It is a lot more relaxed in the sense of there's not a status quo of you need to be on Discord for, say, 30 to 40 hours a week. You have to answer this many tickets. You know, it's not so cut and dry and very job description like. It's more so like, I'm there to help serve Ash and Mike. I'm there to make their lives easier, so they can focus on the actual project. Because I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's really the important aspect of it. So they're able to deliver on that. So really, what does it mean to be a mod? There's different levels to being a mod. You know, you have your junior mod or community mod. So really, those individuals are more so in general chat, in the VC, simply just moderating chat, ensuring people are having a good time, someone's not acting up, and really just kind of facilitating a conversation so it flows. It's really important. And you'll kind of notice sometimes there could be a dead time in a server. And if you just have a mod that can come in and have a conversation, it'll start to flow more. So it's really, again, just keeping the flow go. And then you have mods. So it'd be a step above that. that could be anything from collaboration, so reaching out to other projects to figure out if they want to do a collab, and that's its own job in itself. It's definitely, I would correlate that almost to like a sales and marketing job, realistically. But yeah, so really what it comes down to, at least for my opinion, I'm there to help the project founders, but I'm also there to just entertain and cultivate friendships within the community members. So
How
yeah, just
with being on multiple projects at once, then does the amount of hours differ? So obviously certain projects then would have you doing like 40 hours a week, in which, like, I've always wondered, like, how does it work being on multiple? If one had like a rule set that you have to do 30 hours a week, how does that mean that you could be a mod on another project? Or is it just that you got lucky with two projects that allowed you to be a bit more flexible?
yeah. So the other project, Metabucks, so that one is kind of more so how I described it earlier. It's very clear and cut, like this is your job description. So over there as a moderator, you know, it's answering tickets, making whitelist nominations. You're ensuring that community mods are being present. Really, it's still kind of overarching, but it's more management. So to answer your question with how does it work with multiple projects, really just time management is the biggest thing. I know mods that have 5 projects they're a part of. I don't know how they do it, to be honest, but they bounce around. So, you know, it depends, I think, on your position as well on the team. So say, again, if you're a junior mod at one, you could be a language moderator at the other, and then you might be a mod at another project. But really what a lot of people will do is they'll prioritize the project that they're on contract for first, because they're on contract. And then the other ones, if it's not close to mint, they can kind of just be a little bit more hands off and let the other teammates take over while they focus on the project that's minting soon. Does that answer your
So
question?
what do you mean? What do you mean by being on contract versus not? Do you mean that you've got a set rules, like set payment and things like that, versus?
Yeah, essentially. So exactly. So when I say on contract, meaning a paid mod gig, essentially.
How do they go? I'm assuming this differs per Discord. I know me and you have talked about it off camera, but how do they? Is it set? Obviously, I don't want you to quote figures or anything, but is it a set fee that they give you, or is it basically based on a percentage of that overall mint?
Yeah. So like you said, it depends. It could depend on the individual or the project founders and what they want to do. But generally speaking, it's usually a percentage. So the going rate is about 2% for mods of the supply. Or you can also do a flat rate too. Because even at 2%, if it's like a 10,000 supply, depending how much they're charging, that can be a lot too. So really 2% is kind of like the going rate. And then after that, it's really just going to be based on, one, what's your experience and what can you bring to the project as a moderator? And two, obviously, how do you sell yourself? So, and that's kind of like, you have to be able to negotiate the pay, that's never fun. It's always awkward. I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with it, but you have to advocate for yourself, because if you don't, no one else will.
And do you think that for people who are aspiring to be a mod and trying to get into this space, that like kind of the best route to go about it is through doing maybe like offering yourself to as in a non-paid gig, I guess, to then obviously leverage that to build up your network and your name, to be able to go in more confidently and ask for, I guess, contract work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think to an extent with what you were just suggesting, yes. The only reason I'm a little hesitant to 100% say yes to that is projects have taken advantage of people trying to get that experience. So it's one of those double-edged swords of, well, I need experience, so I need to take this gig so I can get other gigs. But if I take this, it's just free labor, which again isn't a problem. You might have to do your time, but really,
So how did you get your first one without any prior experience?
yeah. So I was very active as not a holder yet, but I had already been whitelisted in like islands. But I just loved it. It really resonated with me. I love the people there. Again, it was only a collection of 120 people. So you really got to know those people pretty well that were trying to get whitelist. So I think between that and then Ash also knew I did the vlogs. So really, I think the vlogs helped sell me in that sense. But yeah, really just be active. So to go back to your question, Jack, is what the biggest thing that I would recommend people who are aspiring to be mods, and really this is just anything in the NFT space. The friendships that you make are so important. And I don't want that to sound extremely cliche, but really networking goes so far in the NFT space. So find your friends, keep that circle tight. There are a lot of bad actors out here, but simply just focus on creating meaningful friendships. And I promise you, if you take care of those individuals, somewhere down the road, they're going to take care of you.
That's so true, man. That's what we had a conversation about this a while ago and how important that was. That's why kind of, although like when I first got into it with the whole invisible friends grinding thing, that I'm so glad I did that even without getting it, just because of how that played out in the kind of the long run with like even meeting you and like, do you know what I mean? It is crazy. Like I always find it mad that there's this place where you go and you've just met people from all around the world that you'd never meet, usually just due to location, I guess. And I don't know, everyone being into something as well. So yeah, there's kind of like a magic about that, I think.
Yeah, no, and it's just such a weird concept to think, yes, we interact with each other every day on social media, so technically it's no different, but it's just incredible. Some of the caliber of people I've seen and the support that they brought is just amazing. I think that's really what's taking me back is just, yes, there's a lot of bad actors, but when you find those genuine people, it's a grand slam nearly every time. It's such a beautiful thing to see, man. I love it. It is definitely one of like the big things I love about this space.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's I don't know. It's just mad, isn't it?
Mate, it's crazy. I mean, just to think how I found like how bamboozling Discord was as well. When first, we were just talking about this off camera, just how hard Discord was to navigate, but ultimately, it facilitates those kind of connections and that kind of teamwork. And well, you literally building entire projects off of a platform like that, man.
I guess kind of that in itself, like the kind of the particularly not just being a mod, but within being in the space, like the perks of it outside of the payment side of things, whether that's you flipping NFTs or actually working for a project. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, what are the additional benefits that you see as a mod that aren't just monetary? So, or like directly monetary, do you know what I mean? So is it kind of like you are still getting that step up?
So really, just to reiterate, I think the biggest thing of value for moderators when it comes to anything outside of payment for your work is the networking.
Yeah.
So say you go to a new project that has a team of 4 members, you're the 5th member. Well, now that you're in that team, you're within that team circle, you now have access to 4 other smaller circles, essentially the circles of each team member. Like, yes, there may be some overlap with that, but there's also going to be some people that you've never interacted with that will be in that circle, and those people can also help facilitate you in your Web3 career. So really it just comes down to, it's like, you need to know more people. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
aside from that, another thing is it's very common when projects do collaborations with one another. Part of those collabs, there's usually some sort of whitelist swap or allocation. So some projects will do team allocation only, where they'll do a team for team swap for both projects. They get the whitelist and that's it. Some will be more focused on giving back to the community, which I think is the best way to go. But really, it allows mods to not have to go to other projects and grind them out like you
Yeah,
traditionally would without being a mod. And I mean, that's
that's
so
huge.
underrated.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were kind of saying earlier with RCC, you had to grind for it. And it's like, once you've done one really hard grind, I think that's kind of like the learning lesson for you in Web3 space.
100%.
Like, no, like you really need one to really understand, like, okay, this is what it's not about, and I
Yeah.
don't need to do this. So yeah, really just that time saving. So because as a mod, you're really not going to have a lot of time to go around different projects. A lot of your
Yeah.
time is going to be facilitated to just the projects you're moderating.
Going back to your point quickly about like your network growing and things like that, because I know we've had a conversation in the past about like, even though like we're involved in it in terms of we're looking into it. I mean, you're heavily involved into it in an actual role, but like it for me sometimes it can feel that we are that it's like moving really fast and loads of new people are entering the space like very quickly, but really it's still super early, and like the opportunities to actually meet some people that you'd never meet in say like 2 years time or 5 years time, when more and more people have actually come into this and it's more saturated, is like it's so heavy right now. And to have a role like yours, from my perspective, must be so advantageous to those circles that you actually get into. Whereas I don't think necessarily when everyone wants to be a mod in a few years' time that they'll get the same opportunity, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
no, I definitely agree with you. There will be diminishing returns at some point, not just in the sense of like what you can get on an ROI for one of your NFTs. In my mind, honestly, right now it feels like we're in a modern day gold rush. And during kind of what we saw with the bull run before we had the market dip, um, dude, it doesn't seem sustainable in my opinion. It really doesn't. And plus, I mean, like, I think there will be kind of a new paradigm and a shift with Web3 at some point. I just wouldn't be surprised if we got away from Discord, just because people are preaching utility now. Again, it's no longer about the art. That's the new meta's utility. Like, what is it going to do? How is it going to pump my bags? So really, a lot of these projects are being treated as companies now. So in the same perspective, like, yeah, modding might not necessarily be readily available, but I think that's where we're going to start seeing that shift where Web 2 jobs are starting to come more into Web 3 and it'll be more integrated.
Do you think that that point of the projects turning into more like companies kind of centralizes it and takes it away from what Web3 supposedly? I mean, Web3 at the moment is kind of just a concept of more like a multitude of ideas rather than a set definition. And do you think by like these projects becoming more like Web2 companies takes away from the like one of the main features or ideas that's spoken about with Web3, with it being decentralized?
Okay, so I would say with the whole utility thing, I'm personally not a fan. Again, like the whole premise of NFTs, besides ownership, was like, hey, you're bringing power to the artist, and it's about art. And it could be a video, it could be a GIF, it could be a JPEG, whatever it is, right? It's all subjective. It just doesn't make sense in my eyes to ask artists for utility and to become a company.
I was saying that. I was saying I found it quite great. And actually, we actually had
Yeah.
this chat in the last episode of the podcast. It seems weird coming out of nowhere when you're an art based project being like, what kind of utility do you guys want to see? It's just forced.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure, I get it. It is an investment, so I don't want to diminish that. But I think with the with tribalism being so present, not just in crypto but in NFTs, with different communities, um, people like to compare, and I think that comparison is where it becomes like a fallacy, right? Because you can't compare the success of one project to the other because they might have a completely different business plan. So like Bored Apes, they were really the pioneers besides CryptoPunks. They've been there the longest. They've kind of had that first mover advantage, kind of like Ethereum compared to other altcoins. Um, so, like, is it good in a sense? Yes, because I understand, like, Web 2, from my understanding, was really more like Amazon, like e commerce. And then Web 3 is kind of building on top of that. So, in a way, I get it. You're building your brands, but people just have really unrealistic expectations. There's a lot of entitlement and lack of patience in the space. And I think that's the distinction is like, okay, if you want utility, that's fine, but Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time. You're not going to get your guaranteed 1000x in a month. It's going to take time. Not everything can just go parabolic. If it did, everyone would be rich. So
Yeah, I think like you said, it is just like that gold rush phase right now where nobody really cares about. I mean, there are going to be some people, but most people are there just to make a quick bag and then like flip everything, which is kind of wrong, but I understand it also. But like, I don't disagree with flipping and things like that. Um, but I do think it is. I can't see it looking the way it does basically right now in the coming years, really. And that's like kind of leads me on to like how do you how do you see like obviously the way that it is right now with projects launching, people flipping. How do you see it like moving into the future? So what do you think the NFT landscape's going to look like? Do you think like these Web 2 giants are going to come in, take it over, and it will be that, or do you think it will still be the kind of people cropping up everywhere trying to come out with a project and that without much meaning, or people trying to just shove utility behind things solely rather than anything
I
else?
think that one's tricky to answer too. I know there are some Web 2 companies that are starting to get into NFTs. But still, I think there needs to be more institutional adoption in the crypto world first. Like we're seeing it now, yes, but still very early adoption. And with NFT still being in its infancy, I just think it has a long way to go, which is fine. We're seeing all these different types of derivatives or free mints that are going like parabolic, right? Like I was saying, it's just a modern day gold rush. People are just throwing money just for the sake of throwing money. So I think with the current market right now, I don't mean to be a pessimist, but just like thinking macro level, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have lower lows. And what we saw with, I'm just gonna use Bitcoin as an example, when it hit 26K, like yeah, it was a new low, but I wouldn't be surprised if we retest it later in the year. And if we do that, people are gonna overreact more, and I think that's when we're really gonna hit like that bear market. I know we're in it already, but that no shit, like, hey,
Oh, so you think we're gonna be in this for a lot longer
I
than?
think so. I mean, I could be wrong. That's the thing. Like, no one can predict the market. I try to be a healthy skeptic when it comes to investing and just like the macro level with that. Obviously, like I'm still bullish long term, but it just, dude, I don't know about you, but our inflation rates are ridiculous. Our money printing is getting worse. We're kind of catty corner to either we raise interest rates, and if we raise it too quickly, then it's game over. Like we're going back. But if we don't do it enough, then it's like we have to do more money printing, so we're further in debt. It's just housing's just unattainable for a lot of people. People are buying over asking.
Don't you find it funny that like even though there's this effect like kind of ricocheting from kind of like the stock market's dropping, like we're kind of leaning towards that recession anyway. And then there's this outside opinion from people who aren't involved in this kind of world, I guess, that look on it super negatively and are kind of like, there's no value to this anymore, and well, there's just no value, full stop. And I heard something recently that was kind of like there's no value in it yet with the way that you're measuring the value, like just purely being monetary. Whereas like if you looked at it for the how early it is and what you could do moving forward with it, there's kind of extreme value.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's basically just the way that people are used to measuring value for a company or stocks. You can't apply it to NFTs because, again, like you were saying, it's so new, and it's just a different beast in itself. So I don't think there's a way to truly accurately like evaluate the value of it, you know. Like, sure, yeah, you can go based off supply and previous generations and whatnot, but you know, when people say like there's no value, well, that's a little much of that's a slippery slope. And the reason why I say that is because we put value on things. I mean, you can apply that to anything. Brands, like brand names, Gucci, Prada, whatever, like that is seen as valuable because we've placed the value on it. You know, so it's like that can really be said to about anything.
It's super subjective, isn't it? Like what one person finds valuable, another doesn't. And I kind of guess like that's kind of where the non-fungibility of it comes into play, whereas like me and George could both have this hoodie, but my nan gave me this one. Like I kind of came up with this analogy, like my nan gave me this one, so it's got sentimental value for me, whereas like really retail wise they're worth the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So like I would never replace it with George's.
Yeah, and it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier when I got into NFTs. You know, it's like being a kid on Christmas when you're able to mint and you finally get to see revealed. That emotional response creates that sentimental value. So like that is part of the value. And I think people forget that because they're so caught on like, I'm trying to pump my bags, which again, it's totally understandable. People are trying to use this as an investment strategy, which is fine. But, you know, I think there's a little bit too much focus on that rather than how did this start and what is it really for? But then again, it's subjective. What are NFTs really for? You know? So I think it's definitely case by case scenario for sure.
Going back to a point where, because I just know that people watching will want to know this. This will be like one of the, I guess, most asked things. So I've got to ask it you. What are the do's and don'ts of getting whitelisted? How do you get whitelisted? Or what are the best practices for getting whitelisted? And what is the things that you definitely should not do? Like spamming your DMs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the don'ts. Don't come to my DM asking when whitelist. You don't even have to be in my DM. Like, don't just, because it's one of those things that's tricky. Like, obviously, some people are joking with you. They're like, when? But, you know, if you're actually that individual, like, I'll put it this way. Just to backtrack a bit, really what I would say is the biggest thing is be yourself. Unless you're an asshole, then don't be yourself because you're not going to make it. Anyways, but no, really be yourself, and really be genuine. I know it's cliche. You always see like, be genuine, have genuine conversations. Just treat it like a normal conversation when you're out and about and socializing with friends. Like, catch up with people, figure out who they are. And really that's just going to naturally facilitate conversations with people, which makes your life easier for one. And then I would argue it makes it more personable for you. So you want to come back, you enjoy the project and you enjoy spending time there. So really just don't focus on, oh, I need to do X amount of art pieces or meme pieces. Just have fun. I mean, really,
See, I remember
that's what it's about.
me and you had this chat, quite a long one, if you remember, about the whitelisting process, and I was trying to say that for people, because it's nice what you just said in terms of don't focus on doing like 5 pieces of art or like 5 memes or something like that. Whereas, because I was saying we were talking about grinding, and I was like, well, it's difficult for people who aren't necessarily skilled to show that they care or really want to be part of something, if they can't do artwork, if they don't know how to make memes, if they're not funny but they really want to be part of it. And kind of one of my problems is that obviously everyone in the space right now is trying to figure out a new innovative way to whitelist people, when really I don't know how anyone can do it in terms of eradicating that grinding culture, because I actually think in a way, weirdly, it's unfair to the people that that's all they can do. Like show up every day and like show up and like be that. But then I guess it comes back to what you just said. Just be a nice person then, and you will get noticed if you are, but you have to still show up. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're in a Discord full of
Like,
a lot
it's
of people.
not like a gimme, right? I don't want to make it sound like, okay, if you just show up, it's yours, right? No, like obviously I do remember this conversation. You do have to put in some effort, but the difference is like you don't have to destroy your health or your sanity for the sake of getting at a cheaper price for a JPEG. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I agree, I'm not artistically inclined by any means. It looks like a 3-year-old was on a 3-day Coke bender and tried drawing. It's not good.
In
So,
terms
yeah,
in terms of like the kind of the technical aspect and of how you as a moderator go about whitelisting someone, how does that work? Like in the back end of Discord, is it in Discord or how
Yeah,
does
it's
that
in
work from a technical
Discord.
standpoint of view? And what are you looking for as well to just kind of
Yeah, so
segue into that?
really, so I mean, there's some like basic approaches. One, just general activity, see how long they've been there. So message count, and it's not necessarily the amount of messages that matters, but it does give you insight of like, okay, either this person is a paid grinder because that's becoming an increasingly common issue, or it could be a bot, or it's someone a little bit more new, or it could be an alt. Like there's so many different things that you have to look at. So you have the messages portion, and then you have to go into the messages. Like what again, it goes back to the quality over quantity. Are they actually having legit conversations, or are they just kind of feeding off of each other? And could it potentially be the same person that has 2 accounts that's just talking to himself? Yeah. So really it's just more so for simplicity's sake, just seeing if they're genuine, and are they helping others within the project? Like, are they just a generally good person to be around? Would I want to have them around and talk to them? Is the biggest thing. Because I mean, it's like you're kind of, I don't want to say gatekeeper, but for lack of better words, you kind of are a gatekeeper of like, hey, I want this person to join our community, and I would prefer if we didn't have this dude. But again, it's secondary too, so there's only so much.
Do you have like access to any of the stats on like how much time they spend in VCs or anything like that in the voice chats?
Yeah, there are some websites or bots.
Really?
There's
I
some
didn't
bots
know
that
that.
measure VC time. Yep. There's also.
Is that something you look at, or is it more like the conversations you've actually had with people? Like if you've conversed with somebody in the VC, you can get a better idea as to if they're a human or not.
Yeah. So with that one, going back to the website, like you can basically get a member breakdown. It'll show you how many minutes they've been in VC, how much of that was active, how much was deafened, how much was mute. And then it'll show you their messages as well. So it gives you kind of like a full analytic breakdown. Now that's not necessarily as important. So really, I'm just looking for people that I can have a conversation with. And if I can tell they're actually being genuine and they're not brown nosing to get whitelisted, then naturally, like, I'll wait a little bit, give them some time just to see like, hey, okay, are they going to be consistent? And if they are, then it's just like, all right, cool. Like you're consistent with who you are and like the conversations you have, like, by all means, man.
Next time George comes into Like Island, he'll be right up. Yeah.
Oh, bro, remember me? You came on my podcast once. we're best friends, right? Yeah.
Whitelist. What's up?
I'm like, we're best friends, bro. Yeah. Remember me?
Of course. But no, man, you guys got to stop by. I would absolutely love it. We can get in VC.
Oh, bro, what is the funniest, like, ridiculous way someone's tried to get whitelist? Do you have like a memorable one that's like just like, why
Fail.
would you even try that? Like, that's ridiculous.
I mean, I had people, so before Invisible Friends like actually minted and there was still allocation. So basically I had to go around asking people like, hey, do you know someone that like really deserves attention?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, so many people tried chilling themselves immediately. Like they just drop into my DMs and be like, oh, hey, I have a community member that I think would be great. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, just give me their Twitter, like give me a little rundown so I know what to look for.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's actually me. And I'm just like, red.
Oh, it's dead.
Left on red.
That's so
Like,
embarrassing.
the audacity, man.
That is
The
so jokes.
audacity.
Did you even reply to that? What'd you say? Oh,
No,
bro,
no,
dude.
I don't.
It's me.
'Cause it's just
Oh,
it's me, dog. I'm the deserving member.
Yeah, like, who is that? You know, like, you're looking at him.
No, it wasn't Jack.
Imagine if
but
that was
no,
me to Nick as well.
There
Imagine
was
that was-
some
I'm gonna try that.
Oh,
I
fuck.
just instantly log off the moment I see it.
Oh dear. What about in terms of like from a project's perspective and like what kind of strategies or thought process happens when you are giving out whitelists from like a macro sense in terms of you want to make sure there's enough whitelists close to mint or how does that work? Like obviously you don't want to go blow your load and give them out all straight away. Do you know what I mean?
No one likes a two-pump chump. So I would say, so there's a couple things, right? You're gonna have a certain amount of your supply that's set for collaborations because that is important. People do look at the quality of collaborations they're bringing in 'cause in a way that is the sense of value and utility to people. So you have that aspect, right? You don't want to give too much to collabs. A perfect example of a project that did this is Whiskers. Whiskers actually did half their supply to just collabs. And I don't think they had an open Discord for the longest time. So the issue was that you had people who vaguely knew about the project that had half the supply. And then you had the other half that knew about it, but only had access to half the supply. And when it came to mint date, just straight down the tank. So there is that aspect. Really, it just comes down to pacing. So yes, you don't want to start too quickly, but at the same sense, you don't want to be too stringent with it because they add up quick. And like, dude, if you have like 600 whitelist spots to give out, and even if you have like, say, an extra 5,000 in the server, it's still so much work that you have to do because then you're sitting between those 5,000 of who really deserves it. And then you're going to have to kind of like, you're doing backtracking with work. And it's just so much unnecessary stress. So it's a balancing act in a sense, not too much for collabs. And then when it comes to giving them out, you want to be consistent. Because I think also you have to think of it this way. If a project goes too long without giving whitelists, people are going to get very discouraged because they're like, why? Like, no one's been whitelisted yet here. What are you guys looking for? I've been here all week. I've been grinding. That's on them. But still, like, I've been here all week and not even a single role has been given out. So, you also don't want to leave people hanging and feeling frustrated.
What's your opinion on like we saw with like Goblin Town, because really stealth mints that have been like free mints that cropped up out of nowhere, it seems, with no Discord or anything like that, no community building, that have gone on to do really well. What is your opinion on things like that versus actually cultivating a community in the Discord? Because you'd think that would produce better returns in terms of your project doing well on the secondary than something that you've actually been building for the last few months and everyone in the community knows each other. But we're seeing this really weird, I guess, change of these projects coming out of nowhere and literally doing really well. So, like, how do you how do you think of that in terms of the two?
Yeah. So I think part of the reason why these are going well is, again, the current market sentiment. There's also a lot of project that, in my opinion, doesn't apply to everyone. They're overcharging for their art, especially in a bear market right now. So, they're not thinking of like human psychology of the investor. Like point one is really high for a lot of people, and that's seen as risky. So this is kind of where I think the free mints are coming into play. The most risk you're taking on with it is your gas fee. So if you're paying $5 to $6 in gas, it's like, are you really risking anything? I'd argue not really. So it's just like, all right, cool, you have a free mint, and then if you are lucky enough where it gets profit, well, you essentially just got free money with zero risk. Granted, could it have been dumb luck? Yes. But I think it's going to be interesting because it kind of takes away of like what the whole premise is. Maybe it could be kind of that new shift of this isn't so much community focused, and maybe this is going to become more of a company. But I would still argue you need your community to back you on that. I truthfully don't know. I think it will be a meta for a little bit, but I don't think it will last, because ultimately at the end of the day, what do they really get out of it besides
It's
a
like,
flipping profit?
yeah, it's like instant returns rather than building lasting value on like a.
Yeah, exactly. Like at some point, people are going to get bored. There's going to be a ceiling for it. And then what? Like someone's going to be caught holding the bag.
Cool. All right, let's move on to a few general bits and bobs, and then I want to circle back onto Like Island and get a few of your thoughts on Like Island before we round it up. But okay, so in terms of a few general points, in terms of success or failure of projects, what's the main reason that you've seen that projects seem to fail?
It's tricky because, I mean, you have some projects where there's, lack of transparency. Lack of transparency, or pretending to be transparent. Like maybe you're a little transparent, but you're not fully transparent, right? So it's still smoke and mirrors. So I would say transparency is one of the bigger killers. But there's also, this may be a more unpopular opinion. Like, yes, you do need to take care of your community, because again, they're your supporters. But at the same time, you kind of have to be careful, because you can't always have the community members decide everything that's for the project, because they honestly might not even know what is best for the project. It might be.
That's so true.
Essentially what I'm getting at is like, you don't know the perspective that they're seeing an opportunity from. It could be complete self-preservation.
That's like exactly what Gary V said about V Friends. He was like, everyone was saying, what is the utility? We want it now type thing. And he's like, I'm like, sometimes as much as he cares about the community, they're not the ones running it. They've bought into it, and like he knows it's going to come back to them. It's whether they believe in it long term rather than what is it right away.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just community members aren't gonna always know what's best for the project, because again, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I just had a follow up to that too.
But I mean, back to transparency though, real quick. Like, I don't understand for the life of me why, like, all teams aren't. I mean, maybe you can tell me something I've not thought of here, but why are all teams not docs? I mean, that just seems like a very, very obvious thing to do if you want to instill confidence in your community.
Yeah, I truthfully don't know. I mean, obviously, I've been doxxed. I've never had a problem with that. I know there's people that like their privacy, and I understand that. But I think what a lot of people kind of forget is they're already on social media, and they're posting their face. And it's realistically, if someone really wanted to try to find your platforms, they're going to be able to find it.
That's true.
You're online.
NFT ethics will be after you.
What's up?
I said NFT ethics will be after you.
Oh, God. Could you imagine if they had an ethics committee?
Right then, real quick then, let's talk about Like Island a little bit more, and what about the project. Tell me a little bit about the project real quick and what's upcoming for that.
Yeah. So again, just to go back, Gen 2 is going over the story of the inhabitants of Like Island. Where did they go? They all mysteriously vanished after the event. So really, this is going to focus on their lore, and it's going to be exploring where their new homes are. We actually did a Twitter space last week where we put on tinfoil hats, metaphorically, and just kind of figured out like, okay, what are the community members' theories of what happened to the Islanders? That was very interesting. Essentially, came down to aliens and time travel. Very interesting, but besides the point, that's going to be a lot larger of a supply. We're going from 120 to 3,000. And I don't know if you remember, but I did kind of mention that the game theory we're trying to implement will make a very interesting secondary market. And so what I mean by that is with the inhabitants, for example, Hegarty's Lighthouse, there's 4 Hegarty family members. So a lot of this will be a profile picture project in the sense of the inhabitants. So in order to unlock the new plots, you have to collect all 4 of the Hegartys. So you would get the Hegarty Starbase, right? So based off rarity, if they are of higher rarity, it might only take 2 people to unlock a plot, or even 1. And so where the game theory starts kind of coming into play is, well, what if you have 3 of the 4 Hegartys and there's that one douchebag that's holding on to it for like 5 ETH and knows that you need it to unlock the plot. So we've been discussing of incorporating wild cards. So essentially what that would be is it would be like a blank NFT. I don't know the details on that specifics yet, but it'd be another NFT, and that can be used in lieu of that missing family member. So you don't get kind of screwed into paying outrageous prices for a profile.
That's mad considerate as well. Well thought of.
Yeah. And I mean, and plus it kind of helps the individual out who has a wild card, because, like,
that's true. Yeah.
This way, if someone's charging 5 ETH, because, everyone wants their bags pumped too. I get that. So if that last family member's 5 ETH, well, you can just undercut them and still make a massive profit, say at like 3 ETH.
That's so true.
And that person just saved 2 ETH and unlocked the plot.
And like everyone would want a wild card, surely.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, we're not exactly sure of like the burn mechanism, not like burning the supply, but how that would work.
Yeah.
Would it be removed after that? I think is a bigger thing. I think it would be like a one-time use.
Do you know the game Una?
Remember? Yeah, I was literally going exactly the same direction then, mate. I was thinking of board games. I know a couple.
It is like Uno, where you get that card and you can decide what that is or something. Or like Scrabble. Scrabble, when you get that a blank one and you can choose what letter it is to make up your word.
I feel well niche now. I was thinking of Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride?
Have you ever even heard of that?
Have
you heard of that, bro?
Which one?
Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride?
Yeah.
I feel like I actually have.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite a popular one in America. Could be wrong.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, like that. That Settlers of Catan and Ticket to Ride, I feel like, are the 2 ones.
You think about the Beatles?
No.
That is a song, though.
Anyway, we digress here massively. We do this. Amazing. So, when does Like Island drop, bro? Gen 2.
So, no definitive date yet, but at the end of June is when we plan to mint. So, few weeks.
Amazing. Cool. So there's obviously some whitelist spots left if people want to get involved in the community,
Yeah, plenty of white spots left. Like I said, I'll just make it really quick.
Yep.
Just be yourself, be helpful, and just have fun and enjoy your time.
Yeah.
And the role will naturally come. There's plenty of opportunities.
That is the upshot of literally everything you just said. That's the takeaway that I got from that was.
And everyone blew up his Twitter account saying when whitelist.
Other than that, yeah, man. It all boils down to just being in like treat online interactions in the same way that you would treat your in-person interactions. There's not really, just going off of the stats that you can clearly see about people, there's not really a way to game the system. Grinding is effectively an attempt at doing that, but when the moderators have access to all those stats, you're literally going to get rewarded for being a good contributor to the community and being a genuine person. So that is, I think, the main takeaway message there.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail right on the head. You took the words out of my mouth.
Amazing. Cool. I think
Thank
that's
you
a
so much, bro.
pretty
for
good place to
coming
leave
on
it.
as well.
Thank you so much, mate.
No, thank you, George and Jack. Thank you for your patience with the technical difficulties. I know it was fun, but seriously, I had so much fun, you guys. Thank you for even having me on as a guest. And
All right, big love, brother. Thank you so much for coming on.
bro, thank you
But
so much.
before you go,
Seriously.
one quick thing. This is NFT Party episode 3, and if you have stuck with us throughout this whole podcast, thank you so much. We love everyone that's been watching it so far. So don't forget to like and subscribe. We're going to have more moderators on in the future. We're going to have founders on of NFT projects. We are just getting started.